These are yarn tacks. 52 skeins of yarn. That's how much yarn I've bought in the past 2.5 years. Plus 8 yarns that I found around my parents' home. That is a total of 60 skeins of yarn that I've had in my possession since I started to crochet. And after 2.5 years, guess how many I still have left? If you said 41, you are right. Hi, my name is Sylvia, and in the past 2.5 years that I've been crocheting, I've only used up 19 skeins of yarn. That means that I've been using up an average of 7.5 skeins a year, and that it would take me at least another 5 years to go through my entire stash. And I don't like that. So I have challenged myself to crochet as much as I can for the next 25 days, and so hopefully I will use up 25% of my yarn stash. Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna show you right now the progress that I did on the first day of crocheting. It's technically the next day. This is all I managed to do on day 1. It's the main body of the seal. I still need to fill it up with filling. It's very small, but it took me 5 hours. Turns out I had to use a very small hook. The pattern suggested a 1.4mm hook. I didn't have anything that small, so I'm using a 2mm hook. There's 50 rows in this, roughly 2,000 stitches, so it's a lot. Today is the second day and I will try to finish this. So right now what I'm gonna do is fill it up with filling that I have. Day 2 of crocheting amigurumis until I get rid of my yarn stash. I finished the amigurumi. I remember I said yesterday that the only things I had left was crocheting a few pieces and sewing everything together, but what I did not account for was all the embroidery that I had to do, like the eyebrows, the eyes, the whiskers, the mouth, the flipper. It's all embroidered, and I didn't have embroidery floss, so I had to use sewing thread that I just wrap around a few times so it would be thicker. The original was supposed to be like 13 centimeters long, and mine is more like 24, so that's almost double in size, and the difference in the hook was just 0.6 millimeters. The biggest problem that I encountered is that the pattern called for a smaller yarn for both the eyes and the nose, and for an even smaller hook, which I didn't have because I was already using the smallest hook that I had. So what I did was altering the pattern. I switched all the double crochets for single crochets, and it kind of worked out in the end. So it was around 9 hours of crocheting, then a few hours of embroidery and a few hours of sewing. In total, I think it took me definitely more than 15, but less than 20. Day number 3 and 4 of crocheting until I get rid of my yarn stash. Okay, on day number 3 I told you that I wanted to crochet an amigurumi, specifically a hanging opossum called Waffles, and I did. It was easy to make. The only part that was a bit difficult was the tail, the end of the tail, because you have to crochet in the round, but it's only 4 stitches, so you never see when the row ends or starts. It was a bit messy. And the other kind of difficult part was applying makeup to the face of the amigurumi. He has a bit of a winged eyeliner and a little arrow on his forehead. I tried to keep count of how many hours it took me to make it. I lost count, but it was between 5 and 8. And I know I'm a slow crocheter. I know I'm slow at absolutely everything. But then I saw a comment on the Etsy reviews, and someone said that they had made 2 in less than an hour. Day number 4, I did a few changes to the opossum. I gave him some whiskers, and for that I used the bristles of a brush. And to make them a bit thinner, I shaved them down with an X-Acto knife. I also had to apply a little bit of varnish to the eyes because when I brushed him out, I had scratched the eyes and they lost all their shine. On day 4, I also started a new project, and it's gonna be a basket that I'm gonna use as a pot cover for this plant. I got this far yesterday. It only took me half an hour. And I'm using this rope and this yarn. I'm following a YouTube tutorial and mine is coming out a lot different than hers. Day 5 of crocheting until I get rid of my yarn stash surplus. I did finish a basket, specifically this one. You may notice this doesn't look nothing like the basket that I was working on yesterday, and that is because the basket that you saw yesterday I completely forgot. One of the reasons that I ditched that project is because I ran out of the yarn that I was crocheting over the rope. The other problem that I had is I was getting the flat bottom right, but once I started to do the walls of the basket, it was curling like a bowl. It wasn't flat on the bottom anymore. I do have a basket, so that's great, but what I don't have is a plant pot cover, which was what I had in mind for that yarn. Crocheting with the rope, it was painful. It was an hour and a half of suffering and my thumb was completely numb after working on this. After finishing that, I wanted to start on my new project, which was gonna be a messenger bag with a tapestry on the front. This is how far I got. I am working with this yarn. It's actually this thin, and to make it a bit more sturdy, I have doubled the yarn. The problem is I'm gonna run out of yarn. I have this other yarn, which is pretty similar to the other one. Not an exact match. So I'm thinking maybe I do the back panel with this one and use the original blue for finishing the front panel and doing the entire strap. Day 6 of busting my yarn stash. I did finish the panel that I was working on, the one that has the tapestry, and I did the entire strap. It's 180 centimeters of single crochet. I had exactly the right amount of red yarn to finish this. Exactly. Here are the updates of day 7, 8, and 9. Let's start with day 7. Here it is, the finished bag. There were problems, so I did run out of yarn. Remember, I had 2 blue yarns. I ran out of both of them. I started with the second blue and I almost finished the entire panel, but I was a few rows short, so I switched to the original blue to do the last couple of rows. So that is done, but I encounter an even bigger problem. The strap turned out to be very stretchy. To make it shorter, I would have to unsew both panels, frog the strap, a bit of the strap, and sew everything again, and I don't want to do that. So I had one idea, and I thought about doing single crochets or slip stitches all around the border on both sides of the strap. And so that would stop it from stretching vertically. And that's what I'm gonna do, and I hope it works. Now, if that was day 7, let's go to day 8. The only thing I did was crocheting these 2 coasters. They were specially requested by my sister. They were really fast to make. They took me less than an hour to do both of them. Finally, we get to day 9, in which I tried to crochet with t-shirt yarn. I wanted to make 3 hanging baskets to turn into hanging planters. Specifically, I wanted to make this one. And with the amount of t-shirt yarn that I had, I thought I would be able to make 3 of these, but when I was done with the project, I did weight this thing in whatever I had left of the t-shirt yarn. This is 200 and almost 50 grams of yarn, and I only have 150 left, so there's no way I can do another one. So I am left with 150 grams of t-shirt yarn. So what can I do with it? Maybe I could make just a big circle and use it as a pot holder. It's time for an update on day 10 and 11 of crocheting and busting my yarn stash. So I worked on this bag on making it less stretchy by slip stitching all around the border with a 2.5mm hook. And it worked, it barely stretches at all, and I have actually worn this thing out. It did stretch a little bit, but it's still wearable, not like the footage you've seen before. And I use a t-shirt yarn to make a pot holder. It's just a circle with a little handle, so very easy, very fast. Now, the problem is, remember this basket, which was the original purpose of the t-shirt yarn? Well, I wanted to use it as a cover pot, and I bought a plant, this Maranta, beautiful Maranta. It's a little bit rough on the edges, but I hope it recovers and thrives in no time. But the problem is, this is the smallest plant that I could get, and it does not fit in here. So I now have absolutely no use for this basket, and what I'm thinking about is frogging the entire thing and turning it into a basket like this one, so I can cover the pot of this thing. And now to day 11, which was a bit more exciting than day 10. I got to crochet a little raccoon. This is the end result. He's super cute. So I started with the other three raccoons that I wanted to make, and I made the body parts, like the tails, ears, hands, all of them, and I just have to work on the body. So this one took me 4 hours, maybe even 5. I hope that now that I have all the body parts done, it would only take me an hour to finish each one of them. Updates on day 12 and 13 of stash busting my yarn collection and turning it into cute projects. And here are all 4 of them. They're so freaking cute. They're so cute I want to make one for myself too. These I made specifically for some family members. I will probably in the future revisit this project and make another one for myself, but not now. I'm a bit burnt out from making 4 of these back to back. I switched the black paws for gray paws, and I switched the bigger eyes for smaller eyes, and I'm really happy that I decided to do that. But I gotta say, I still love my other one. He's now the goofiest looking one of the bunch. So that takes us to day 13, in which I did make the basket. I had to frog the other basket that I had made until I only have left the flat circle, and I worked on the circle, gave it some walls, and now I have a basket. Very simple basket. I didn't even follow a tutorial. At this point, after making this one and all the other basket attempts in this video, I kind of know how to make a basket. And the only interesting thing that I have to say is that the final rows were like a bit tight on the plant, so I just gave it a few increases on the last 2 rows. That's it. Now I've already used this as a plant pot cover for a couple of days without lining the inside with plastic. And now the plant leaked, and this thing is now very smelly and it's starting to turn yellow at the bottom. So after filming this, I'm gonna go ahead and wash this. Welcome to update on day 16 of busting my yarn stash and turning it into cute projects. I forgot to mention that I got a plant pot cover for this one. I haven't been filming much for the past 3 days because I've been working on the exact same project all the time, and that is Wally the Whale bag. I am in love with this thing. So what did I do on day 16? Only 2 things. I crocheted the entire strap of the bag, and I also had to sew everything together. None of those things were very exciting, to be honest. I was running out of yarn to make the strap. So the original design used the lighter blue to make the strap and the strap loops. I knew I didn't have enough of that, so I switched colors. I was just gonna make the strap and the strap loops on the darker color, and I barely had enough to finish it. So the other thing that I did was sewing everything together, and that was the messy part, because for the lining I used a chunky yarn. It turned out bigger than what it should have, and things were not aligning perfectly. Sewing the zipper was also very messy because of that same reason, and also because sewing zippers is not great, not easy, not fast, and not exciting. About the pattern, it was very easy to follow. Great instructions and images, just what you want in a pattern. I was in dire need of a new everyday bag, and now I have 2 of them. And another little thing that I forgot to mention, and it's been happening the past few days, is that my fingers are starting to hurt a little bit. My wrists are fine, my elbows are fine. It's just these 2 fingers, and sometimes the fingers on the other hand, that are starting to hurt a little bit. And the other day they were a bit swollen, which is not great. And I'm blaming half of it on crocheting with t-shirt yarn and with macrame cord, and the other half on crocheting non-stop every day for between 3 and 8 hours. Hello, welcome to another update. You may notice my hair and my glasses have changed, and that means it's been more than just a day since I last recorded the last update. It's only been 2 weeks actually, but I'm gonna have to read my notes on what I did on each day because I'm gonna give you an update on every single day. And on day 17, I started this little guy. To be more specific, I only did the head, the entire head, like the actual ball, and the ears and the nose, and attached the eyes. It was pretty easy to make. It only took me a bit more than an hour. The only problem that I found is that I had to use a bigger hook than what the yarn actually required, and so some of the stitches were coming out a bit gapey, especially in the black yarn. But I didn't want to use a smaller hook because then the end result would have been even smaller than this. But in the end it worked out. It's not noticeable. On day 18, I worked on the body, which was not as easy as the head. It took me an entire day to make it. I started by the legs, and then you work in rounds until you finish the belly, and then you work in rounds until you get to the spine of the little raccoon, and then you work on the tail. Pretty interesting concept. It's basically a no-sew pattern apart from the head. I also brushed out the raccoon at the end so it looks like fur. Very cute. Now on day 19, I started on a new project, but actually I had other things to make, so I was gonna take a day off from crocheting to get my things done. But at the end of the day, I still have a little time left, and I started on this little thing, Cora the little penguin. That day I only worked on the eye patches, so 2 white circles, and the beak. Now, about the beak, I didn't have orange yarn, so I thought it would be a great idea to use embroidery floss, since you can buy it in very small quantities. I wouldn't have any leftovers, and I could choose from a very big range of colors. On that side, yes, it was a good idea, but economically, it made absolutely no sense. Only after buying it, I realized that I could have basically bought an entire skein of orange yarn by the same price. Now, on day 20, I only did the head. It took me a while to make because I used a 2mm hook, and you see it's quite large compared to the other amigurumis, and with a 2mm hook, it took a while. The pattern is very straightforward, so much so that it doesn't really give details about where to attach things, so I just had to eyeball it, which, to be honest, if they had told me to attach the eyes on, for example, row 37, I would have been too lazy to count 37 rows, and I would have eyeballed it anyway. On day 21, I worked on the body, the little feet, the wings, the body, and the bag. I attached the body to the head, and basically I finished the penguin on day 21. Yeah, I only had one thing to do, and that's the bonnet. But first, let's jump to day 22. On day 22, I went on a trip to London, and on the flight there, I decided to start another crochet project. I decided to work on a bottle holder bag, and on the flight to London, I did like half of the body of the bag. On the flight back, I did the other half, and I started the strap. That would be 3 days later on day 23. So between the day that I started this bag and the day that I finished the body of the bag, there were 3 days where I was in London enjoying my time there and not crocheting. So yeah, technically that would have been my day 26th, but I count it as my day 23rd because the days that I don't crochet, I will not count them here. And on day 24, the day that I came back home from the trip, I was really tired, but still I crocheted the entire strap of the bag. It was stretching out a lot, like with the other bags. And I also did the slip stitch all over the border, but it's still a bit stretchy. And yeah, it does the job. It holds bottles. And on day 25, which is the last day, I did the bonnet, Cora's bonnet. So I did a little pom-pom, my first ever pom-pom. The problem is that the yarn is a lot thicker than the yarns that I use for the rest of the penguin, and so I made it a little bit shorter, just 1 stitch shorter, so it wouldn't be too big on the penguin. And the other thing that I did that day is a headband. Very easy headband, just 5 stitches, single crochet back and forth. I thought it would eat up a lot of my chunky black yarn that I have no idea what to do with. It used like half of the skein, but I still have another half skein of black chunky yarn that I have no idea what to do with. And that would be it. Those are the 25 days of crocheting, and now we're gonna analyze a little bit of what I have achieved. Now let's briefly go over on how this challenge worked out. So how many days did I end up crocheting? I crocheted for 25 days over a span of 28 days because I went on a trip for 3 days and I couldn't crochet. Now on those 25 days, how many projects did I finish? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, plus an honorable mention to the basket that I did completely finish but then frogged a few days later because it was too small. Now let's talk numbers. Did I accomplish my goal of using up 25% of my yarn stash? Well, let's see. Out of those 41 skeins of yarns that I had at the beginning, there are 7 that I used up completely. Nothing left, not even a scrap. Then there are 4 yarns that I used up almost completely, but I still have some scraps left that are only good for some kind of scrap project. And then there are 5 yarns that I used approximately half a skein. I wish I had weighted all my yarns at the beginning of this challenge, so now I could weight what is left and I could tell you precisely the amount of grams that I've used, and we could have a more exact percentage of stash used. It's hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure I've reached the 25% goal. So, go reach it. Now to finish, I want to say that I very much enjoyed this challenge. Personally, I feel very accomplished. I have finished 25 projects. I finished a total of 18 projects in just 25 days, and I don't think I finished that many projects within a year, let alone a month. It has also helped me to become a more experienced crocheter. I have worked with a total of 15 different patterns from 15 different creators. I've learned new techniques and I've gained many hours of experience, and it feels great becoming better at something that you enjoy so much. I also got a bunch of useful projects out of this. Many bags that I can wear every day, a plant pot cover, a basket, a pot holder, and the rest I am going to gift away, but it feels great having things that I've made myself that I can gift, like part of my time and my passion. And finally, it also feels great reaching the goal that I had in mind, which was making more space in my yarn collection, but also finding inspiration in what I already have. I had to go out of my way and analyze the yarn that I had, brainstorm ideas, go on the internet and search for patterns, tutorials, etc. And I've liked this process so much that I'm now considering not buying yarns for a few more months and going through my stash, continue busting my yarn stash and finding projects for the things that I already have. But for now, I'm gonna take a break from crocheting. Still, there's gonna be a video next week, so if you wanna see what I'm making next, I suggest you subscribe and we'll see each other next time. So, bye!